The text arrived between helping customers at my boutique. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha, my hands didn't shake as I read it. My voice didn't waver as I helped Mrs. Collins pick out a scarf. The only sign that my husband of 12 years had just nuked our marriage via text was a slight tightening around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Collins left, her purchase wrapped in our signature silver paper, before typing my response. Good luck. My name is Naomi, and at 38, I just received the most callous goodbye in history. But while Daniel was probably gloating over his grand exit, imagining me in tears over his betrayal, I was calmly locking up my boutique for the day. The signs had been there for months. The late nights at work that never matched his paid deposits, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he'd started going to the gym religiously, buying new clothes, trying to recapture his youth. 3 months ago, I'd found a receipt for dinner for two at an expensive restaurant on a night he'd claimed to be working late. That same evening, I'd opened a separate bank account at a different bank. A week later, when he mentioned wanting to combine our accounts to simplify things, I'd agreed cheerfully while moving my personal savings to the new account. The joint account he just emptied contained exactly enough to keep him from getting suspicious about 2 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest was safely tucked away, along with detailed records of every suspicious transaction he'd made over the past year. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Olivia and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Olivia, the new receptionist at his office, I'd met her at the company Christmas party, watched her laugh too loud at Daniel's jokes, noticed how she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to think she was special. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I'd consulted 2 months ago when I'd found the hotel charges on our credit card statement. It's time, I said simply. They're ready, she replied. I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Do you want me to have him served in Miami? No rush. Let him think he's won first. Another text from Daniel. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop, the successful boutique I'd built from scratch, the one that generated more income than his middle management position, the one whose profits I'd carefully kept separate from our joint finances. I smiled, thinking of the certified letters that would greet him in Miami. Let him enjoy his moment of triumph. I spent that evening in our house, my house, since I'd inherited it from my grandmother, and kept it in my name despite Daniel's repeated suggestions to add him to the deed, another lucky instinct that had paid off. While organizing the paperwork my lawyer would need, I found our wedding album. Daniel looked so different then, before his midlife crisis had turned him into a caricature of his former self. These days, he wore shirts too tight for his softening middle, tried too hard to connect with the 20-somethings at his office, used slang that sounded ridiculous coming from a man of 45. My phone kept buzzing with texts from him, each one more condescending than the last. I've been planning this for months. Olivia understands me in ways you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your own age. Already told my family. They agree we grew apart. It's nobody's fault, really. I screenshotted each message, adding them to my evidence folder. Let him dig his hole deeper. My lawyer would love his casual admission of premeditation, his gleeful announcement about emptying our account. The last text caught my attention. BTW. I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. Mrs. Harrison speaking. I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately. Medley, of course, ma'am. Can you identify the charges? 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked today, hotel charges at the Royal Palm, and I'll need to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have documentation of the fraud? Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book travel with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I'll be happy to forward them. The representative's professional tone couldn't quite hide her satisfaction as she canceled the charges. Daniel and Olivia would arrive at the airport tomorrow to find their tickets invalidated, their hotel reservation canceled. My phone buzzed again. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. I actually laughed out loud at that one. Did he really think he had any claim to my grandmother's house? Had his ego grown so large that he'd forgotten whose name was on the deed? Another buzz. I know the shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair payment for your half. My half of my business that I'd built myself, funded myself, ran myself. While he complained about my long hours and called it my hobby, I poured a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified. Tomorrow Daniel would learn some hard truths about property law and separate assets. But tonight I'd enjoy the quiet and plan my next chapter. Morning brought a flurry of increasingly angry texts from Daniel. What the heck did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me. I silenced my phone and headed to my boutique. Friday was always our busiest day, and I had a new shipment of designer handbags to unpack. Life goes on, even when your husband runs off with a receptionist young enough to be his daughter. Around noon, his mother called. Naomi, dear, Daniel told us everything about how controlling you've been, how you drove him away. He says you're being vindictive now, causing problems with his travel plans. I put her on speaker while arranging a window display. Did he mention emptying our joint account and charging tickets for him and his girlfriend on our credit card? Silence then. Well, he said you left him no choice, that you'd been cold and distant. Barbara, I have his texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where he bragged about taking our money, or maybe the one where he mocked my age? Another pause. He did seem a bit cruel. I told her that text message was inappropriate. I appreciate the call, Barbara. I've always liked you, but I think it's best if we end this conversation now. My lawyer has advised minimal contact with Daniel's family during the proceedings. Goodbye. By late afternoon, Daniel's sister, Allison, was spreading family gossip through mutual friends. Apparently, Daniel and Olivia were stuck at a budget motel near the airport, their Miami dreams temporarily derailed. He tried using his personal credit cards, but those had been maxed out for months. Another red flag I'd noticed. My lawyer called with an update. The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday. Given his admission of emptying the joint account and the documented credit card fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet, but he'll get the papers at his new motel address. Speaking of which, his girlfriend's social media is providing excellent evidence. She's been posting about their adventure all day, including some choice comments about you. I smiled, thinking of my own documentation. A year's worth of suspicious charges, hotel receipts, text messages that proved premeditation. Daniel had been so focused on his grand escape that he'd never considered I might be watching, waiting, preparing. My phone buzzed with another text. You think you're so smart, but I made copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half that business is mine. I forwarded the text to my lawyer, adding it to the growing file of Daniel's mistakes. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The emergency hearing on Monday was everything I could have hoped for. Daniel showed up in his new young wardrobe designer jeans too tight for his age, a blazer that screamed midlife crisis. Olivia waited outside, her youth painfully obvious under the harsh courthouse lighting. My lawyer presented our evidence methodically. Daniel's gleeful text about emptying our account, his credit card fraud, his documented history of hidden expenses. each piece carefully collected over months of quiet observation. Your Honor, Daniel's hastily hired lawyer attempted. My client admits to some rash decisions, but Mrs. Novak's actions have been vindictive and calculating, my lawyer countered. You mean prudent. My client protected her separate assets and maintained detailed records of her husband's suspicious behavior. That's not vindictive. That's smart business. The judge reviewed my documentation, the separate property deed to the house, the boutiques and corporation papers in my name only, the careful separation of business and personal finances that Daniel had always complained about. Mr. Novak, the judge addressed Daniel directly, you admitted via text message to deliberately emptying a joint account and using shared credit cards to fund a trip with your girlfriend. Do you deny this? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I was just trying to make a clean break by committing financial fraud. The judge raised an eyebrow. And now you're claiming rights to property that documentation shows is clearly separate from marital assets? Daniel's lawyer tried again. My client is entitled. The business was established before the marriage, my lawyer interrupted. Mrs. Novak maintained strict separation of business and personal finances throughout. We have documentation of every penny invested and earned. I watched Daniel's face as reality started sinking in. He thought this would be easy. Empty our accounts, run off with his girlfriend, maybe claim half my business in the divorce. He'd never bothered to understand my insistence on keeping things separate, had mocked my careful bookkeeping as obsessive. The court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct, the judge announced. All shared assets are frozen pending final dissolution. Mr. Novak is ordered to return any funds removed from joint accounts within 24 hours. But that money's gone, Daniel protested. I suggest you find a way to replace it, the judge said. Mr. Novak, the court takes a very dim view of using shared credit cards to fund adventures with a paramour. Outside the courthouse, I heard Olivia asking Daniel about their Miami plans. His response was lost in the sound of my heels clicking confidently across the marble floor, heading back to the business he'd never understood or respected. The next few weeks brought a string of increasingly desperate moves from Daniel. He tried claiming the boutique had been his idea, remembered investing money in its early days, even suggested he'd been my business partner all along, claims quickly disproven by my meticulous records. He's getting desperate, my lawyer observed. His girlfriend's social media shows they're staying at her studio apartment now. Apparently, living on a receptionist's salary isn't quite the glamorous escape he imagined. Daniel's family started reaching out, their tone markedly different from their initial accusations. We had no idea, his sister Allison admitted. He told us you'd been cold and controlling, that he needed to escape. But then we saw his texts, the way he bragged about taking your money. That's not the brother I thought I knew. His mother called again, this time in tears. The things he said about your age, about replacing you with someone younger. I raised him better than that. I thought I did. I let their calls go to voicemail. Their support might have meant something weeks ago, but now it felt like rats deserting a sinking ship. The boutique thrived, ironically boosted by local gossip about my situation. Women started coming in specifically to show support, often leaving with far more than they'd planned to buy. My ex tried something similar. One customer confided while buying a designer handbag. Thought he'd take everything in the divorce. Men like that never expect us to be smarter than them. My phone still buzzed occasionally with texts from Daniel, his tone swinging between anger and manipulation. You've ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. You'll regret being so vindictive. Can't we work something out? That business would be nothing without my support. I forwarded each message to my lawyer without responding. Let him dig his hole deeper. Through the grapevine, I heard Olivia was having second thoughts. Apparently, sharing her studio apartment with a middle-aged man who couldn't afford his own place wasn't the romantic adventure she'd imagined. The age gap that had seemed exciting during secret hotel meetings felt different in the harsh light of reality. She posted about toxic relationships and learning from mistakes. Yesterday, my lawyer mentioned during an update call and removed her relationship status. This morning, I almost felt sorry for Daniel, almost. But then I remembered his ha-ha after telling me he'd emptied our account. The casual cruelty of his comments about my age, the way he'd assumed I'd be helpless without him. Instead of pity, I felt something else. Pride. Pride in my foresight, in my quiet strength, in my ability to protect myself while he underestimated me.